Rogue board member taking legal action without board approval. Check out this video in podcast form by searching Austin Stories wherever you listen, or check the video description for a link. 4 HOA units, 4 board members. Takes 3 to get a majority vote, right? Not according to Karen. We have 1 unit behind on dues. They owe $5,500, but the HOA has not really suffered for it. There was a tight spot with an insurance payment last summer, but the unit in default made a sizable payment when it was discussed, via group text by Karen, and we currently have a nice cushion. Everyone has access to monthly bank statements, and Karen in Unit D likes to group text about the delinquent unit, Unit A, after the statement comes out each month. She has also taken on the role of debt collector and has sent a certified letter to the unit threatening legal action, all without the HOA board, of which she is 25%, having any involvement. I'm technically in charge of the HOA, meaning mail comes to me and I make sure that the bills get paid. But we vote on all decisions. I, Unit B, am in frequent communication with Unit A. Unit C doesn't show up for meetings or join in group text. Karen likes to stretch the truth and exaggerate. So, last group text minus Unit A, that was all her as usual, was her saying that she has been asking for info on when they will catch up for 18 months. False, only 7 months. That they won't schedule a meeting with her in violation of bylaws. False, we met at her insistence 7 months ago, and they won't respond to her even though she sent the certified letter. She says that she doesn't know what to do other than pursue legal action. So, Unit C says, I agree. First peep in months. I say we should meet with them first. She says they just ignore her so we can't meet, and then proceeds to send a demand text to group text threatening legal action if they don't respond in 3 days' time. Before you say, why is this in text? She has been asked to stop many times. Unit A will only respond through email, though I sometimes cave and send a text back. It's almost all from Karen with no responses. 3 days go by and she gets an email back refuting her claims and reminding her the HOA has to vote. She says, I already started legal action this morning, and what's not true about what I said? And then she sends that to the group text, to which I say, hey, for the record, I am not on board with legal action. Ever since, radio silence. Now this HOA has very, very old governing documents. Built in 1905, shared water, heat, and garbage with 4 townhomes. Old beautiful brick building. What can I do about this Karen, and what legal action could she have taken? I mean, I think this Karen is just power hungry, right? She controls how everything is being said, just changes it to make it fit her narrative, and she's never the bad guy, right? How would you handle her? HOA levies fines even though I'm not part of the HOA, with updates. My parents had an existing fence on their property that was falling apart. They tore the old fence and built a new one without a building permit. A couple of months later, they receive a notice from the HOA stating that they are in violation of the governing document because they had the fencing installed without filing a building permit with the Osceola County or notifying the Architectural Control Committee as per the deed restrictions requirement. My parents are not part of the HOA. The notice also includes the following statement. Additionally, our records indicate that you are not a member of the Homeowners Association. We highly suggest that you complete the enclosed application and submit this with the annual dues of this amount. They were invited to attend an HOA meeting to contest these fines. However, they were unable to attend due to an emergency. Since they did not attend the meeting, the HOA levied a $1,500 fine and planned to file a property lien against their home. My parents tried to get more information, but the number provided does not return their calls. At the moment, I'm trying to pull deed records from the county to determine if there are any deed restrictions. I plan to help the folks to contact the HOA representatives if they do another meeting regarding the fine. So can the HOA impose fines if my parents are not part of the HOA, or is it dependent on what the deed restriction says? It just appears counterintuitive to not be part of the HOA, yet they still have to receive approval for a fence regardless of deed restrictions. We're hoping to remove the fine. So I've received some clarifying information from the folks. The HOA has yet to put a lien on the property and they only threatened it. Update time. I found the deed. However, it is one page. I'm not sure if this is typical for HUD purchase property. There is some language that concerns me regarding restrictions, which I comment below. I found the record plat and saw no mention of an HOA. Nonetheless, I told my parents to call the title company for more details. Unfortunately, I found the restrictions document and covenant titled Restrictions on Real Estate for this subdivision, and my parents' lot and record plat. I found the documents on the county recording website, and it says, "No building shall be erected, placed, or altered on any lot until the construction plans and specifications and a plan showing the location of the structure have been approved by the Architectural Control Committee as to the quality of workmanship and materials, harmony of external design with existing structures, and as to location with respect to topography and finished grade elevation." So what would you do in these shoes? Is this fair? Let me know. HOA wanted me to replace a dead tree. My wife and I purchased a house in a neighborhood that had mostly retired families. There were several other families in the area that had kids, but for the most part, it was older folks. We bought our house the day before Thanksgiving and moved in overnight and into the morning. The following Monday, I received a letter from the HOA that I had a dead tree in my front yard and I needed to have it replaced. There was a rule that we needed to have 2 trees, one in the back and one in the front yard. So I contacted them and I said, hey, there was no way I was going to plant a brand new tree that would die immediately and that the ground was too hard. We live in northern Colorado. I told them that I would replace it the following spring, and they agreed that that would be okay. The following spring, on the official first day, they sent me another letter saying that I needed to replace the tree. I again told them that the ground was too cold and hard to replace a tree, and I didn't want to spend money on a tree that would immediately die. After several exchanges and a phone call to a local nursery, they agreed that I could wait a little longer. Now driving into the neighborhood, there is a division between entering and exiting the neighborhood. This is the HOA property, and they had a good-sized tree there. The tree had died and was in view of the main road and everyone entering into the neighborhood. I finally got a fine in the mail about my dead tree. I refused to pay that fine, and I told them when they got rid of their dead tree, I would remove mine. They pushed back and said that, as a homeowner, they could fine me, and I needed to follow the community guidelines. I continued to refuse to pay the fine and had a friend who was a lawyer contact them. They agreed to remove the fines and still said that I needed to follow the guidelines. After a few weeks, when I was driving into the neighborhood, I saw their tree had been cut down. When I got home, I got my axe and I chopped down my dead tree. I replaced the tree soon after. After this whole incident, someone from the HOA would walk by my house and measure my grass and would constantly harass me. This was one of these several issues that I had with that HOA. Luckily, with a new kiddo on the way, we moved to another town into a larger house. I had a coworker who lived a few houses down from me, and she said that they started harassing her too about her grass being too long. She worked nights at a hospital and would sleep during the day. She moved out of the neighborhood shortly after I did as well. This commenter said they would have cut down the dead tree, used it for firewood in the winter, and then got a fake tree off Amazon and planted it. Oh, it says here, our rules about trees never mention if they have to be real or not. Would have you done that too? Let me know. I'm part of an HOA, and management is refusing to review security footage to see who destroyed my Halloween decor. I live in Chicago, Illinois, and I moved into a condo with an HOA back in June. Nothing egregious has happened so far, until now. I pay my dues and keep my head down, and I say hi to the neighbors when I pass them in the halls, but I rarely see other people in this building. A couple of weeks ago, I put up Halloween decor on my door. It's just 3 things that stick only to my door: a pair of monster eyes, cobwebs, and a string of battery-operated copper LEDs. None of it sticks out into the hallway or anything like that. I put them up in early September, and there were no issues for the longest time. Yesterday, October 5th, I came home around noon after spending the previous night at my boyfriend's. Door decorations were all still intact. My boyfriend then comes to my place at 7 p.m. the same day and showed me that my lights are missing. Everything else on my door was still intact. My monster eyes and cobwebs were still on my door, only the lights were missing. My setup was that the batteries with the on and the off switch were taped to the inside of my door and the lights extended to the outside of the door from within, meaning a small portion of the lights is between the door and the door frame. My thinking was that someone cut the lights purposely with wire cutters because these were copper LED lights and rather difficult to snap by hand. However, my boyfriend did show me that it's also possible that the copper string snapped after repeated assault by bending it back and forth, and that it was possible that the portion that sticks out of the door frame was repeatedly assaulted by my door and door frame, causing it to snap. However, I argued that even if it did snap on its own, the lights still hung on the cobwebs, so theoretically, the rest of the lights should still be on my door, just unblinking because the wire connection was broken, but the lights are just all gone. My condo unit has a security camera directly in front of it, so I reached out to my building manager to ask him to review the tapes during the time frame that it might have happened, which was October the 5th from 12 noon to 7 p.m. And I was told that they only review tapes if it affected the association as a whole. So basically, I'm boned because I'm only part of the association. It's so upsetting because I never got any complaints about my Halloween decor. I want to know what happened and if it was purposeful destruction, and I want to know what options I have against the perpetrator, but that's not even possible without security footage review. I'm going to take down the rest of my decor so that it doesn't get further damaged. The lights aren't very expensive, so the loss itself isn't the problem. It's the fact that I have to live in the same building with someone who might have purposely done this that really bothers me. It's just so pointlessly hostile. This says that vandalism is a crime and that the HOA could have a legal obligation to review the footage or the security. What would have you done? Ex-roommate was so very dumb. This was around 2000 or so. I was living in a pretty sweet 2-bedroom apartment right above where I was working at the time. My sister's boyfriend had recently moved to town and needed a place to stay. We were already kind of friends, so I gave him a bedroom. Rent was split, but it was still my place overall. He had a pretty annoying habit of making food, then eating it in his room and leaving all the dirty dishes in there. I bugged him about it for a while until he finally started at least putting him in the sink, still dirty but at least accessible. Eventually, I got pretty mad about this and basically told him to clean the freaking dishes. His reply, "That's not happening." Okay then. For the whole time he'd been living there, he was allowed to use my computer. It's a pretty beastly gaming rig I built to check his emails and crap like that. After he said that garbage about the dishes, I had a little idea. When he left for work that day, I hopped on the internet and found a free tiny program called BootLocker. It basically locked the computer with a black screen with a password prompt. No password, no computer. It even had an option to lock the BIOS, so if the PC was rebooted, it would ask for the password before even booting. There was also an option to include some words below the password prompt. I chose clean dishes equals checked email. Then I went about my day. Needless to say, when I got home later, he finished work and was there before me. The dishes were clean, but he was not happy. Poor little baby. Cue his revenge. He had a pretty fancy Sony TV that was in the living room. I had it hooked up to the computer so movies could be watched, games could be played, and so on the sweet big screen. 32 inches was way bigger than my monitor. Plus, we had free cable from work downstairs. After the bootlocker thing, he thought he would get me back by activating the parental controls on his TV. I get home after work, he's not home, and I go to watch some TV. No go without the 4-digit code. Took me roughly 2 minutes online to find what do I do if I forgot my Sony TV code. The look on his face when he got home and I was watching TV was freaking golden. He moved out not too long afterwards. I mean, this is funny because, like, you get the guy who's not pulling his weight with the rent and whatever else probably, and then you're like, hey, just clean this up. Simple job. And he's like, no, no. And then he tries to get you back and you get him. What would have you done? Awesome story. HOA Karen blocks me, but I'm a paramedic, and then she gets arrested. Click here to find out what happens to Karen on your screen, and I'll see you there.